Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Neeru Tandon, Associate Professor, VSSD College, Kanpur. We are discussing Paper 3rd, 19th Century English Literature, and this module on Charles Lamb as an essayist has been written by me. Charles Lamb, known popularly as Prince of English Essays. 19th century literature is incomplete without him. His essays, they just create an atmosphere where you can laugh, where you can cry, a mixture of pathos and humor, a strange mixture that encourages you to think deeply. His essays are charming, and the charm of his essays brings forward the love of literature. Charles Lamb was born in the Temple, London, where his father was a clerk to one of the benchers in 1775. He was Coleridge's schoolmate at Christ's Hospital. He said, "A man is known by the company he keeps," and his friendship with Coleridge inspired him. After leaving his school, he joined the Indian House and remained there for 33 years. He never married for the sake of his sister and taken good care of her as her guardian till the end. His friends included Coleridge, Wordsworth, Hunt, Hazlitt, Sadeh, and many others. He was gifted and well-read enough to mingle with the intellectual elite. Charles Lamb is known for his essays. He wrote essays on different subjects, the subjects that are of universal value. He himself had spent 6 weeks in an asylum at the age of 20, and this problem was there in his family. His sister Mary was declared as mad, and he was there to take care of his sister. He was known in adulthood as a bit of an eccentric, incurably informal in social situations, and possessed of high tolerance for unpopular opinions. He is a famous English essayist, and he created the style of informal and free essays. His first publication was the inclusion of 4 sonnets published in 1796 by Joseph Cottle. As an essayist and a critic, he was well known for the humorous and informal tone of his writings, though his personal life was not an easy one. It was marked by frustrations, tragedies, problems, madness of his sister, death of his brother, and so on. His famous essays like Mrs. Battle's Opinions on West, The South Sea House, A Chapter on Years, Grace Before Meat, Witches and Other Night Fears, The Praise of Chimney Sweepers, A Dissertation upon Roast Pig, The Tombs in the Abbey, etc., created an atmosphere where essay writing reached to its pinnacle. We value Lamb as an essayist. We love him because of his essays, because of the quality of his essays. But he also wrote some poems. He also tried his hands in the field of drama, though unsuccessful. And his essays, written on various subjects like whimsical, humorous, graceful, critical, sensitive, and illuminative, made him famous. Before Lamb, the essay was known by the works of Addison and Steele in the 18th century. Let me remind you that in 18th century, when the periodical essay was started, what is periodical essay? That the essay which got its publication after a fixed period of time was known as periodical essay. Addison and Steele were the masters of periodical essays. They also wrote essays on various subjects of human interest. Just like Bacon, the father of English essays, who wrote essays on the themes, on the subjects that are of universal interest. Somewhere, Lamb has also followed the same thing, like when he wrote essays on poor relations. We feel, yes, this is the case that we can experience every day in our life. When he writes essays on the convalescent, yes, we remember the day we were recovering from our illness, what happened to us. But the way he expresses all these things make it so grand, make it so enjoyable, make it to touch our heart. In the Romantic era, the essay became familiar not only in tone but also in purpose, and credit goes to Lamb and his contemporaries. Lamb, along with William Hazlitt and Thomas de Quincey, appeared personally in his essays. How his essay is different from rest of the crowd is that his essays can be called as personal essays. The personality of the writer merged with the substance of the essay. You feel you are knowing Lamb better through his essays. In his hands, the English essay becomes not a vehicle of ideas but a plaything to be enjoyed. Lamb's essay on the tragedies of Shakespeare is the most distinguished critical writing that came from his pen. He openly expressed his personal feelings. His criticism, in the proper sense, impressionistic criticism, and it reflects the quality and flavor of the Lamb's taste and personality. Lamb, not only he appears in his essays, he discusses and brings his family, his friends, his acquaintances in the essays. We all know that Lamb had a problem of stammering, but his stammer never hindered his reputation as an exciting conversationalist. That was the confidence he had. Most of Lamb's essays were written under the pseudonym Elia. His essays are known as Essays of Elia, and it was a title given to the book in which he published his essays. Writing in the persona of Elia, a charming, curious and talkative London bachelor, Lamb describes a scene or a character never seriously evolving a thesis. After conversing with Elia, reader feels a spark, satisfaction and entertainment. Lack of serious debate never bothers the reader because he gets so much out of the essays mixed with humor and pathos. Elia's personal charm lies in the whole essay and justifies the title Prince of English Essays given to him. Lamb's familiar tone, which came partly from a conversational flow of words, was directed to a familiar audience, educated Londoners whom he knew personally. After going through his essays, you feel as if you are talking to him, as if he is talking to you, as if you are in a conversation. Lamb took great pains revising his text in order to achieve the effect of conversational ease and commonplace subjects. The subjects of the essays suit the tone. He always took care of this one element of his essays. Besides Elia's playfulness and familiar tone, Lamb's mischievous humor stimulated him to mix fact with fiction and historical accuracy with imagination. In his essays, we find old-fashioned expressions and allusions to Shakespeare Milton, and the prose writers like Sir Thomas Browne, Robert Burton, and Thomas Fuller. His essays had an ancient essence because of his love for literature, specifically for classics. Lamb is chiefly remembered for his Elia essays, works celebrated for their witty and ironic treatment of everyday subjects. Through the persona of Elia, Lamb developed a highly personal narrative technique to achieve what many critics regard as the embodiment of the familiar essay style. Extremely popular in Lamb's days, the Elia essays first appeared in the London Magazine between 1820 to 1825, but were later collected and published in 2 volumes. Charles Lamb, rightfully called the Prince of Essayists and the master of the personal essay, because of his capacity to develop a highly personalized narrative style through his literary alter ego, Elia. No single passage can illustrate all of Lamb's qualities, but perhaps a few citations can give a sense of his style. Now, discussing Lamb is incomplete without going through his essay Poor Relations. This essay Poor Relations is about the poor relation in someone's family. Thus, that family can be anybody's family. Often poor relatives cause some problems in front of their guests, visitors, etc. by their inferiority complex. The essay started in a humorous tone but ended in a tragic style. That is the style of Charles Lamb. There is a chronological sequencing of events along with descriptive sketches that are vivid and realistic in their portrayal. After going through the essay, you feel as if you really met that person. I give a quote from the essay itself, then you can feel how important it is to go through the essays of Charles Lamb to understand him in a better way. I quote, "A poor relation is the most irrelevant thing in nature, a piece of impertinent correspondence, an odious approximation, a haunting conscience, a preposterous shadow, lengthening in the noontide of your prosperity, an unwelcome remembrance, a perpetually recurring mortification, a drain on your purse." Let me explain these lines. What Charles Lamb wanted to tell, that a poor relation, whenever he visits your house, on any occasion, your house where visitors are there, and in front of them when he comes, naturally being poor, he becomes a cause of embarrassment for the relative, and he becomes a shadow, just like a shadow that gets its lengthening in the noontide of your prosperity. What he means, that when you also had no money, then he was not the visitor, or his visits were not that important or problematic for you. But when you are in the noontide of your prosperity, then the visits of these poor relations, they increase. And he is always an unwelcome remembrance. You never want to remember when last time he visited you, and since how many days he has not come to you, because that is then unwelcomed remembrance. A drain on your purse, this particular phrase tells you that whenever he comes, you are supposed to spend something or the other on him, and that is why you are not ready to welcome. So, a poor relation is a drain on the purse. Other similes and metaphors are there, like he says, continues to explain a poor relation in different terms. He says, he is a Lazarus at your door, means unwanted. You never want to have a Lazarus at your door. A lion in your path, oh, you want to change your path. a frog in your chamber that makes you uncomfortable, a fly in your ointment you want to avoid, a mote in your eye, a triumph to your enemy. Okay, the other person will get some or the other point to belittle you because of him. An apology to your friends. Because of him, you will have to give certain explanations. The one thing, not needful. You will never need the presence of a poor relation in your house. The hail in harvest that will destroy the good thing. The ounce of sour in a pound of sweet that will be distasteful. So all these similes, metaphors, they try to explain what the poor relation is. How a poor relation creates problems for the person to whom he is visiting. This is a humorous way, but the theme is not humorous. The person as a poor guest, the thing experienced by him are further elaborated by Charles Lamb. He again says, I quote from the essay, he is known by his knock. Your heart telleth you that is Mr. So-and-so. A rap between familiarity and respect that demands and at the same time seems to despair of entertainment. He entereth smiling and embarrassed. He holdeth out his hand to you to shake and draweth it back again. He casually looketh in about dinner time when the table is full. He offereth to go away seeing you have company but is induced to stay. Let me explain. Now, a poor relation, he is just describing a situation in front of you. What Lamb says, suppose that person, that poor relation comes to you and it is the dinner time. Usually, poor relation knows when is the dinner time and he comes at that time. He feels unwelcomed. At the time of coming, he knows that he is a poor relation. So that confidence level is not there with him. He comes with a different sort of inferiority complex. He comes forward to shake hands with you and your guest, but he takes it back because he knows that is not needed, that will not be welcomed. He comes there at the dinner table and finds that you are sitting with your other friends and he proposes, okay, I am going, I will come later. But he knows you will tell him to stay on. That is the poor relation. There is a worse evil under the sun, and that is a female poor relation. Now, Charles differentiates between a male poor relation and a female poor relation. There are certain liberties that you can take with male poor relation, but those liberties you cannot take with female poor relations. You may do something with the other, you may pass him off tolerably well, but your indigent she-relatives is hopeless. He found shelter among books which insult not, and studies that ask no questions of a youth's finances. He was lord of his library and seldom cared for looking out beyond his domains. What he said, what Charles wants to convey, that when a person, a male poor relation comes to you, then what the person does, he just tells him to read some book. He can reasonably tell that I am busy right now, I'll see you later on. But with a female poor relative, this is not the case. He will have to entertain her out of courtesy. And what will happen when a poor she-relative will be there? That he describes in the next lines. Later on, he just explains that she-relative is there again with you and she just offers to work for the household, but that was not possible. And the way she does becomes more embarrassing, and ultimately you tell her not to offer her services. And again, after that, being embarrassed, she wants to work with the maid of your house. And that creates another situation. This is the psychology of the lamb, that he understands the feelings and expresses them so well. That is the beauty of the poor relations, that it starts with humor but ends with pathos. Another essay by Charles Lamb, that is Dream Children. First I quote some lines from Dream Children, then I will explain. Apparently Alice was Anne Simmons, who Lamb loved for several years. Sadly for Lamb, Simmons eventually married another man. Children loved to listen to stories about their elders when they were children, to stretch their imagination to the conception of a traditionally great uncle or grandma whom they never saw. How true it is. It happens with everyone. And then he continues that, then I told what a tall, upright, graceful person their great grandmother Field once was. In this essay, Charles Lamb gives a detailed description of Mrs. Field, who was once a great dancer, and when Charles Lamb describes her dancing capabilities, the imaginary children of Lamb, Alice, her little right foot played an involuntary movement because her interest was there in dance, and when she came to know that her grandmother was also a great dancer, so she somehow connected with her automatically. Then Lamb described that a cruel disease called a cancer came and bowed her down with pain, but it could never bend her good spirits or make them stoop, but they were still upright because she was so good and religious. Now you see the poetic quality of this essay. You can just have a lyrical quality and feel the lyrical rhythm of the essay. Then Lamb further tells about those children. Being a bachelor, we know he never married. So these children, he calls them dream children. Why he calls them dream children? Because he must had the dream of having children like this. And the woman whom he loved, Alice. And he imagines that these dream children are the children of Alice and Lamb. Towards the end of the essay, what those children, they tell him, I quote, "We are not of Alice, nor of thee, nor are we children at all. The children of Alice call Bartram father. We are nothing, less than nothing, and dreams. We are only what might have been, and must wait upon the tedious shores of Leith, millions of ages before we have existence and a name." And immediately awaking, I found myself quietly seated in my bachelor armchair, where I had fallen asleep, with the faithful Bridget unchanged by my side. Now just see this paragraph. Those kids, they tell, we are not of Alice. Our mother is not Alice because she was married to Mr. Bartram, and Alice's children call Mr. Bartram as father. We are nothing, just the dream. We are only what might have been if you were married to Alice. I found myself quietly seated in my bachelor armchair. He makes it quite clear that physically he never produced, he never fathered any child. And he was just sleeping, so this was a dream. And the children, they were talking to him, they were dream children. And he found himself with the responsibility, that is Bridget, the sister who was there with him and he was taking care of him, the sister who really killed their mother with a knife. Even then, Instead of sending her to jail or to mental hospital, he took the responsibility. He took the responsibility to take care of her, and that he did till his last breath. In the essay, all characters are real except the children Alice and John. Title suggests that it is a dream, and reverie, that means a daydream. A daydream means wishful thinking. He wanted that. He was very keen to have such a thing, but that was a daydreaming. Alice and John are children of James Elia, but not of Charles Lamb. To tell them about their grandmother, that is the story related to the house where grandmother Field was a keeper, that was all a part of the narration that he wanted to convey to the world about his grandmother, Mrs. Field. Elia had a brother also, John, and out of enthusiasm and zeal, he never cared for him. When he died, then Charles Lamb missed him, and he could realize the importance of his brother's relationship with him in his life, and in his remembrance only he started this essay. Another essay, The Convalescent. Who is a convalescent? A person after his long sickness, when he starts recovering, that stage is known as convalescence. And what he feels, it is just a simple psychology that when a person is sick, everybody in the house is paying attention towards his well-being. Everybody is doing what he wants, and as soon as he starts recovering, the attention he used to get till date starts diminishing. And then what he feels, from his royal stage to a normal stage, he feels something that is exactly reciprocated by Charles Lamb in his essay, The Convalescent. I just give some quotations from the essay and you can feel the beauty. If there be a regal solitude, it is a sick bed. How the patient lords it there. See, patient lords it there. Patient is the master. He is the king of that bed. Whatever he wants, bed should be in this direction or that direction, will be according to his choice. He is comfortable there or anywhere else, that will be decided by him only. What caprices he acts without control. How king-like he sways his pillow, tumbling and tossing and shifting and lowering and thumping and flattening and moulding it to the ever-varying requisitions of his throbbing temples. Oh, such a headache. So he is doing it the way he wants. Nobody is there to prevent him from doing that. He changes sides oftener than a politician. Now he lies full length, then half length, obliquely, transversely, head and feet quite across the bed, and none accuses him of tergiversation. Within the four curtains, he is absolute. This is his kingdom. This is what he is allowed to do. How convalescence shrinks a man back to his pristine stature, where is now the space which he occupied so lately. Now he is recovered, okay? So, in his own, in his family's eye, the scene of his regalities, his sick room, which was his presence chamber, where he lay and acted his despotic fancies, how is it reduced to a common bedroom? He wants to say that previously there was no noise without his permission, and now it is a common bedroom. So, we had seen Charles Lamb's attitude in his essays. It is autobiographical, personal, and psychological as well. Through this essay, readers get to know his personality, nature, character, relatives, workplaces, people around him, his feelings towards his relatives, his friends. Thus, the subjective note in his essays is vital. As he belongs to the Romantic age, the personal I is prominent in his essays. In almost all the essays we find and we learn something or the other about his life. Lamb talks to the reader as if he were his friends and confesses and confides in the reader. Lamb's personality just appears in this essays as he wants to present. His memories are reflected through his essays. To sum up, Lamb's essays, his personal essays, his autobiographical essays, they are not just presenting one personality. When he presents his essays in front of you, he presents a whole word. A word of a man, his whims and fancies, his likes and dislikes, his observation and his expressions. His command over language is supreme. His choice of word is just uncomparable. The melody in his essays is comparable to a poem. He is superb, he is genius, and he is a darling for the 19th century readers, not only for them, for every reader of English literature. Thanks for visiting EPG Pathshala.